Mama and Barney, Part 3. They all live happily ever after. Mama and Barney's house sat 6 miles from the Rock Island Arsenal, where the guns under their kitchen floor were manufactured, but it was just 50 yards from Rock River, a tributary spilling into the Mississippi less than a mile from their front door. Loaded down with weaponized metal, Mama ran outside, recalling how Barney insisted that living by the river could come in handy someday. He never seemed to worry about the danger it might mean for their two little girls. His world stopped at the edge of his own ambition, leaving Mama to carry the rest. Deep waters and hot guns didn't mix well with the family life Mama dreamed of, but Barney couldn't or wouldn't see it. That's when she realized the cliff edge that would end her life with this man was right in front of her. In the past, she found a way to stay on this side of that edge. This time, she'd step over it. That decision brought unexpected relief that surprised her, and with it came the certainty that she had done her best, that it was time to go. The fading sunlight streaked the sky in orange and purple, but Mama barely noticed as the rustle of leaves and the distant rush of the river filled her ears. Each step felt heavier, like the weight of the guns wasn't just in her arms, but on her chest. This wasn't the life she imagined, not for herself, and not for her girls. They ran down the hill as twilight descended. "Give 'em to me, Darlene," he barked, his voice cutting through the quiet like a whip. Mama watched, both impressed and unnerved, as he heaved each crate into the water. Fear gives you power. The sound of heavy metal hitting the river echoed louder than she expected. Heart racing, Mama looked around, wondering who else might have heard Barney's contraband sink into the darkness, but they were the only ones here. She let out a long breath, the tension in her chest loosening, but only a little. Walking back up the hill, Mama stopped for a minute. It was late April, and the warm weather brought more color to the riverbank than she'd ever seen before. The river's whispers were calming and maddening, like it knew the secrets she couldn't tell. The warm breeze against her face made her want to listen to the water and pretend none of this was happening. The beauty all around her betrayed the ugliness her life had become. Her legs ached from the climb, but it was the heaviness in her chest that nearly buckled her. Before going back to face two little girls waiting on supper, she leaned against the eastern redbud tree that grew between their house and the riverbank and closed her eyes. Its rough bark pressed into her back as she took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. 12 years ago, she stood under a trio of redbud trees growing in the front yard of the old homestead where Daddy read the funny papers on Sundays, and she had been a happy child. A hedgerow of lilacs lined the front boundary, and a star magnolia grew in the far corner where their dirt driveway led from the house to the main road. Every spring promised a riot of color and a sensory dream come true. The sweetness of floral lilac mixed with the citrusy aroma of the magnolia. The redbud's magenta blooms had little need for fragrance. Their beauty was sufficient. She leaned into the past. A dozen years hadn't diminished her memory of that place. Barney walked past her, interrupting her thoughts. "What's for supper, babe?" he called over his shoulder, like throwing guns in the river was just another way to spend an evening. Thinking of her girls, one tied to a chair and the other playing babysitter, Mama's relief boiled over into red-hot anger. He could act like nothing had happened, but she couldn't. Leaving behind the redbud she loved, she followed him up the hill, climbed the stairs, and stepped into the house. It was Friday, and she had the day off. Mama did their weekly shopping the night before, after picking up her paycheck. Looking in the icebox earlier that afternoon and seeing Sunday's after-church dinner, she decided to make it Friday's chicken supper. This was her girl's favorite meal, and lucky for him, Barney's too. Her mama, my granny, would be proud. "This is how a woman should cook," she'd say. Mama wasn't so sure anymore, but tonight it felt like the right thing to do. The hot water sitting on the back of the stove was nearly ready for corn on the cob, and the potatoes she cooked before the madness started would take no time to mash down with butter and cream the milkman left that morning. Mama moved with purpose, her anger simmering beneath the surface, but her hands steady. This wasn't just any supper. It was part of the plan, a way to secure the ground beneath her feet. Grabbing the chicken out of the ice box, Mama tossed it in a brown paper bag that she had filled with flour and spices, just the way Granny taught her. She twisted the top of the bag, her knuckles white as she imagined how it'd feel to wring Barney's neck. But supper wasn't the place for it, not with her girls sitting at the table, staring at her like she was their whole world. Easy does it, Darlene, she thought. You can hate him later. Her cast iron skillet was heating up with Crisco and a touch of bacon fat from breakfast, another one of Granny's secrets. You can't never go wrong with bacon, Darlene, Granny said when she finally agreed to show Mama how to make the best gall-darn chicken her daddy ever tasted. Now she was making it for Barney. He didn't deserve it, not really. But this supper wasn't about him. It was for her girls and giving them something to hold on to that felt like home. 3-year-old Bonnie, still tied to her high chair, and Bunny, sitting in a big girl chair next to her sister, watched their mama ease pieces of chicken down into the hot fat. The sizzle coming out of the pan promised something good for their growling bellies. Bunny had peeked in the icebox when her mama and daddy were down at the river. 4 cups of chocolate pudding with whipped cream on top sat next to a bottle of milk. Bunny was still smiling, thinking of dessert. Barney started drinking before the chicken hit the pan. Mama didn't complain. She listened to every gulp, counting on him passing out early. The more he drank, the better the chances that he'd be in a deep sleep soon after filling his belly. He was nearly through his 6-pack when Mama put the steaming food on the table, and they ate their last supper together. The sizzle of chicken and the giggles of her girls kept her focused as she thought about what was to come once everybody but Mama was sleeping. The G-men Barney warned about never came. By the time she washed the dishes and cleaned up the kitchen, Barney was snoring. That's when Mama packed their bags. Her hands shook as she folded the last of their clothes, glancing toward the bedroom where her husband's snores rumbled like thunder. One wrong sound could end this before it even began. "Where we going?" Bunny asked. Seeing Mama pack a suitcase made Bunny's tummy tickle. It happened a lot, just not at night, most times. "We're going on a little adventure, but you can only see what happens if you close your eyes and go to sleep," Mama told her. "Really? How do I do that, Mama? If my eyes are closed, I won't see nothing." Mama smiled at her little girl's clever reply, but her heart ached for what she couldn't explain. "You will this time, I promise. Sissy's already there. Lay down, baby. We're going to dream our way out of here." "Okay, but tell me the story about the elves and the shoemaker, Mama," Bunny said in a sleepy voice. "They make shoes for the poor shoemaker and his wife to sell, and then the wife makes tiny little clothes for the elves. They didn't even know each other, but they helped anyway. Everybody is happy at the end, aren't they, Mama? They all live happily ever after, don't they?" Mama brushed a strand of hair away from her daughter's face. "Yes, Susan, they do." Her voice didn't waver, but she wondered if she could ever give her girls a happily ever after. She tucked the thought away, focusing on Bunny's peaceful face as her eyes began to close. Bonnie was sleeping minutes after Mama put her in the makeshift crib made from an old dresser drawer, deep enough for a toddler. Bonnie was tiny, and she fit in the deep blanket-padded bottom drawer perfectly. Mama had nailed the back of the dresser to the wall for safety, and now that the story was finished, Bunny was sprawled out on a mattress on the floor next to her sister, breathing slow and even. Barney snored from the other bedroom, where on most nights Mama would have joined him. Not tonight. An hour later, she was ready. With their bags safely stowed in the trunk of the car, Mama went back inside. She held her breath as she walked across creaky floorboards that once hid guns that now lay at the bottom of the river. Her husband never stirred. Mama scooped a sleepy-eyed Bonnie out of the drawer and carried her out into the night. A mix of relief and fear surged in her chest. She wasn't sure what waited for him beyond that house, but she was going to find out. She couldn't stay here. Bonnie was light as a feather, barely stirring, as Mama tucked her into the back seat. When Mama lifted her, Bunny woke briefly, blinking up at her face. It's okay, baby, Mama whispered, settling her into the front seat. Bunny's eyes drifted closed again, trusting her mama as her daddy slept, oblivious to his family's exodus. Mama sat in the driver's seat for a full minute, looking at the light of the moon shimmering on the river below the house. The shadow of the redbud stretched across the hillside, its branches pointing to the future like a hand guiding her way. She'd left her husband 3 times in 6 years. One humiliation after another had nearly broken her. Through Barney's drinking and gambling and cheating, she always found a way to get back on her feet and make it work. But when Barney got in trouble with the feds, her hopes to keep her family together died forever. This time, she wasn't coming back. As she drove away from the man she thought she would love forever, Mama allowed herself a rare moment to remember. The hope-filled lilacs and magnolias of her childhood were so different from the shadows she lived with now. Every memory offered a sweet escape and a painful reminder of what she'd lost. This strengthened her determination that the shadows that had chased away her childhood joy would never darken the lives of her girls. By Christmas, Mama might have felt single, but her marriage to Barney would take years to end. It was like unweaving a garment, each thread taking its time to unravel. Even when the last thread was cut, it wasn't the clean break she wanted. That would take a lifetime.